The Turkish Prime Minister has made a landmark visit to post-Gaddafi Libya. It comes a day after the French and UK leaders received an ecstatic welcome in Tripoli. Just what's really behind these visits? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Shakuntala Santharan. Turkey's Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan receiving a warm welcome as he arrived in Libya on Friday. The visit comes after the French President Nicolas Sarkozy and the British Prime Minister David Cameron were welcomed to the country on Thursday. Erdogan is currently on an Arab Spring tour of North Africa, hoping to assert Turkey's regional influence. Senior Turkish businessmen are also traveling with him to talk about investment opportunities and business ties. The visits of the three leaders come at a time when political and ideological divisions are reported to be growing among the new Libyan leadership. While Erdogan acknowledged that the NTC may encounter differing agendas in the future. But despite the divisions, Erdogan reiterated that Libya belongs to the Libyans.
There may be people with different agendas, and no doubt, with God's help, the Libyan people will prevent them from succeeding. I said this before, and I'll say it again. Libya belongs to the people of Libya, and Libya must remain in the hands of the Libyans.
Well, joining us to discuss this are our guests. In Tripoli, Najmuddin Bukatif, member of the International and Political Affairs Committee of the NTC. In Istanbul, Abdulhamit Bilici, who is a columnist for the Today's Zaman newspaper and the general manager of Jihan News Agency. And in Paris, Hall Gardner, professor of political science and chair of the Department of International and Comparative Politics at the American University of Paris. Thank you very much for joining us. If I could start with you, Najmuddin, does the NTC genuinely believe that these countries want to help Libya rebuild, or how much has it to do with these countries safeguarding their economic interests in Libya?
Yeah, I think first of all, we can't look at this subject in this perspective. I think even Libya has a lot of interest in the world, but if they come here and we're gonna observe this as a just matter of interest, it's gonna be 100% wrong. But there is a commitment for the international community for Libya to help Libya and to raise the human rights in Libya. And now we were in vacuum security, and to be in Libya for this leader like Sarkozy and Cameron and today Erdogan, it's a matter of improvement that it's now there is a security or starting building structured security in Libya.
Hall, do you think these leaders would be as interested in helping Libya if it didn't have Africa's largest oil reserves, if it didn't have gas, and if Libya wasn't at the strategic crossroads of the Mediterranean, African and Arab world?
Well, I think it's a bit of both economic and security interests. I would remind you that Gaddafi squandered the oil wealth of Libya and preventing both the West from access to Libya's tremendous oil potential, but also squandered the economic potential of the Libyan people that would benefit both Libya and the West. So I see this as potentially a win-win scenario. Furthermore, I can foresee some forms of regional integration once Gaddafi is out of the way. This means that Libya can have better relations with its neighbors, particularly Egypt, Tunisia, and some of the other countries in North Africa.
Abdulhamit, what do you think? Is Turkey in it just for altruistic reasons, or has much of their interest to do with the billions invested in Libya during the Gaddafi era?
I guess Turkey is, as any country, is interested in developing its economic relations with the countries in the region. But Turkey's good relations with the region does not stem only from the economic interest. And a proof is that Turkey has been in good terms, not only with oil-producing countries like Libya or Saudi Arabia, but with Syria, for instance, until there was uprisal there. So Turkey is looking especially for people and for people's desires, and at the end asking those countries to be as liberal, as democratic as possible with new administrations and new regimes, and like to share its experience in terms of political structure, economic success, and being able to bring together Islamic roots, traditional roots, and modern values or universal values such as democracy, human rights, etc. So economic aspect is there. Turkey has been one of the important players in Libya for years. As far as I know, there was more than $15 billion of investment in Libya before appraisal. But of course, Turkey desires to continue having good touch with Libyan people, whether they are in Trablus or in Benghazi, all Libyan people, because Libyan people have very warm feelings towards Turkish people, and this is a kind of people-to-people relationship and has lots of elements there. I mean, in terms of historical experience, in terms of religious bonds, in terms of experience of democracy. So it's not just, I guess, money.
Right. It's no surprise that Turkey is back in Libya. They pulled out when the war began, but they plan to return to look after their business interests. Hall, were you surprised by the timing of Sarkozy and Cameron's visit coming just a day before Erdogan's visit?
Well, I think there's a real rivalry and competition between the Europeans and the Turks. Remember, the Turks were slow in supporting the French and British-led intervention in Libya. In fact, Erdogan more or less came out against it, and then realized, I think, that Gaddafi was going to fall, and realized he had to support the Libyan people in their insurrection. I think that behind the scenes there's a rivalry. Remember, it was the Gulf Cooperation Council and the Arab League which first supported the movement against Gaddafi, and then that got supported by the UN with the British and the French. The Americans were reluctant. So my point is that the British and French are, because they supported this movement first, are going to should get on the ground first in terms of getting the contracts. Maybe that's questionable still, but most likely. While Turkey was kind of on the back burner, they're trying to maintain that $15 billion that they had already invested in Libya and hopefully get more contracts.
Right, Najaldeen, if we could come back to you. How important a political boost are these visits for the NTC as you try to consolidate your power there in Libya?
Yeah, I said that. In Libya now, we're trying to build structural security, and that's what help us to continue what the other guest is talking about the matter of improving the economic structure and the other sides and other sectors. So now the most important thing to improve the structural security and to let the people know in Libya and outside that there is a real security in Libya, which is gonna let us able to talk about the other issues.
Do these visits provide more political support to the interim government and to your leaders like Mahmoud Jibril?
100%.
Okay, 100%. Hall, are these visits by the leaders of the UK, Turkey and France seen as a backing for secularists in Libya?
Well, I think yes, no. I mean, the Europeans really can't influence the domestic politics that strongly. They can try. They can certainly speak for secular democracy, but there are some Islamic currents within the current government, and it's not clear how they will work themselves out and what kind of compromises they might make in a new government once it can consolidate itself. So yes, I think there is UK and France are going to push for secularism, but they really can't guarantee the outcome. That's up to the Libyans and the dialogue between the different political factions within Libya.
Najaldeen, how are Islamists reacting to these visits?
I think now the structural security, I think there's a lot of Islamists in this structure. And they were willing to welcome all these presidents here in Libya. So I don't think we have a problem in this matter exactly. But I think the problem on the concept. We have a bad emotion about the word secularism. So it's not the idea of secularism, but the word itself. It's uploaded word. So I think it's just to make it clear what's the meaning of secularism with our values. I'm not talking about secularism in a space. Secularism in specific specific societies, so specific values. So we can create our kind in Libya, which respect our values and our tradition and create our civilization.
Okay, is there a growing divide between secularists and Islamists in Libya right now? Najaldin.
I think we have seen a lot of this conflict in Egypt and in Tunisia, and I think for us in Libya, because we haven't had a lot of political experiences, I think we became more mature, more than Egypt and in Tunisia about this problem, especially about the problem between secularism and Islamism. Now I think there is a compromise. And the compromise, it's mean we all gonna build this country, and we can build it together, and we have a lot of space for all of us.
Does the NTC leadership trust the Islamist leaders? How closely are you working with them to try and rebuild Libya?
Sometimes I have a confusion, with the word Islamist, because in Libya, all of them have a religious perspective. So now the people in Libya, they became against any idea of groupist. If you are talking about Islam, we are Muslim too. So it's our identity. So don't use our identity to convince us that's who we are. So I think now, I told you, people here became more mature. And I think we're going to make a good progress in the future.
Okay, Hall, are you as optimistic? How grave a threat is Islamic radicalism as Libya pushes towards democracy?
Well, I think this term secularism is obviously problematic. I think the main thing is religious tolerance, so that Islamists tolerate groups of other religions and atheists as well, so that you don't have persecutions against people for their own beliefs. For whatever beliefs they hold. I think that's what, when the West says secularism, that's what we mean. I don't think we mean necessarily a totally secular society in the sense that we don't believe in anything. We respect beliefs of everybody as equally as possible. Now the next point is in Libya itself, you have in the past anyway, have Libyan support movements that supported al-Qaeda. Now those groups have claimed that they will support the new Libyan government and that their previous alliance with al-Qaeda is gone. But if I can get back to what really worries me is two things. One is just the spread of arms around the region in Libya. I mean, it seems like everyone has some sort of weapon. I don't know who's going to collect those weapons, where they're going. And that's going to affect the question of security. Then you have the question of the persecution of primarily Africans who came up to work for Gaddafi, who were paid quite well working for him and pretty loyal to him. And then you have reports of persecutions there. And Amnesty International just came out with a fairly strong criticism of the National Council on that ground, on human rights grounds, but of course accusing Gaddafi of worse human rights crimes. Well, my point is that somehow the different groups within the society have to come to a mutual toleration. And thirdly, that includes the people that fought with Gaddafi. There's going to have to be some sort of amnesty programs and truth and reconciliation commissions similar to that we held in South Africa that began to investigate war crimes, torture, etc., and somehow find a way to deal with that so Libya can heal as one people.
Najaldin, what kind of tolerance is there in Libya now? Do the Islamists, the radical Islamists, pose no threat whatsoever to the NTC's ambitions?
I think in this point, especially, we have to make classification. We can't put all the people whom were working with Gaddafi, they are against us. So there is levels or classes. So we put the people who on the high classes in prosecution. But in the other side, now we starting what they called societal reconciliation. And that's the more important. We're gonna build our country, not trying to make the punishment is the main point for us. It's not the main point. Of course, we will have transitional justice, and we started in this. But now, as I told you, we have to build structural security. After that, we can make the courts and the other sectors work. But now we can't. But the space of tolerance now among the people, it's very, very huge. But there is a specific problem between specific area like Smuzrata and Taurga, and we made some conventions to collect the people and just start talking, because there's a lot of lies about this. So I think the space of tolerance is very, very good now.
Abdulhamid, what lessons do you think Turkey has for Libya as it tries to build a democracy?
I guess the position of the religion is important, of course. At one level, people in Libya, in Egypt, or in Tunisia will like to solve that problem. But the main problem was not religion. I mean, the people or the lack of freedoms were not as a result of religious administrations in those countries. It was because of secular authoritarian regimes. So I don't think that would be a great problem to solve what should be the proper place of religion in new, more democratic Libya or in Tunisia or others. Of course, there are debates, and in that debate, Turkey's achievements, especially democratic success, will be very important, because Turkey is both a democracy and a majority Muslim nation, and we are trying to learn from the experiences of every others in the world, from America, from Europe, and from others. And so far, that experience is attracting and appreciated by people in the Middle East, in many capitals, from Syria to Cairo, from Tunisia to Libya. People are looking Turkey's experience not maybe as a model to copy one-to-one, but as a source of inspiration, because Turkey is able to decide who will run the country by elections, and there is a degree of democracy, freedom of expression, and all those things are working in an environment that majority of Turkish people are Muslim. So in that regard, there is hardly any other example that our brothers and sisters in those countries can emulate or can inspire. So in that regard, Turkish Prime Minister's today's visit to Libya or in other countries, in Egypt and Tunisia, was a kind of contribution and support to say that we are with you, we will share our experience with you in order for you to evolve your revolution into a successful phase. You know, there is always the risk in those revolutions that these things, these achievements can be hijacked by extremist groups, either secular extremists or religious extremists. So one of the warning of Prime Minister Erdogan was important, that Libya should not be another Iraq or Afghanistan today. So this is very important, that a revolution can be transformed into a stable, democratic environment, and not to be hijacked by extremists.
Okay. Najaldeen, the head of the NTC, has hailed the visit by the Turkish Prime Minister. He says that Mr. Erdogan and the Turkish people are leaders of the Islamic world. Is the NTC planning to follow Turkey's model, its blend of religion and democracy?
I think it's good to take an advantage or from the other experiences. But if we are talking about the model, we can't take the whole model, because they have history and we have other history. So I think we can build our nation or our country by using the other experiences from Turkey, from the United States, Egypt, any other country. But if we are talking about the good relation, of course, we have a good relation with Turkey.
Okay, and Hall, how do you see, in the face of all these challenges, how do you see the way forward for Libya as it tries to build a democracy?
Well, as I mentioned before, I see some real problems between the three sections. Of course, Libya was pretty much three different regions before Gaddafi came to power, and he unified them. So first, I'd like to see some sort of federalism, or even, I'm afraid it might turn even to confederalism, weaker relationships between the three regions if they can't unify somewhere on the central government. And I'm thinking here of an Iraq scenario where each region, Kurds, Shiites, Sunnis, are fighting for their economic and their political independence within Iraq. And I don't want to see that happen in Libya. And I think we've been reassured today that won't happen. But still, there are divisions between the three regions. Secondly, I think you have to look to a larger regional integration to build all of North Africa, bringing Egypt, Tunisia, and Libya into some sort of a free market zone or a larger integrated marketplace. And that would begin to really build these economies end the poverty that is rampant in all three societies, and begin to make a really positive link between North Africa and Europe.
Okay, very quickly, Najeldine, what does the NTC hope to get to see from its neighbors, from the international community as it goes forward?
First of all, flooding the frozen asset. Because if we I'm saying that again, if we are gonna build the security structure, the most important thing, we need money now. We need money to build the security structure. After that, we can make the country normal again. So of course, first of all, that flooding the frozen asset, and after that, we need the experience. We have to train our people here in the police, in the army, in the other sides to build our country. So of course, we need a lot of help from the international community.
Final word to you, Abdul Hamid. How do you see Turkey's role in the region, in the Arab Spring countries, as they try to rebuild?
I guess Turkish people and Turkish government is already a very active participant in terms of the transformation, not just in Libya, but in whole region. And people are enthusiastically supporting that transformation ends up with success. Of course, there are lots of question marks in our minds, but Turkey's people hearts are with the people in Libya, in Tunisia, or in Egypt, and in Syria, of course, and that would bring and that would make Middle East for the first time a region that is free and able to cooperate with each other to develop democracy and to develop cooperation among themselves. That is which all of the people, irrespective of their identity, whether Arab or Turk or Kurd, looking or aspiring for.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time. In Tripoli, Najeldine Bukatif. In Istanbul, Abdul Hamid Bilici. And in Paris, Hall Gardner. And thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We always welcome your comments and suggestions. Please do email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Goodbye for now.